guys ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. Okay, what is your name and where are you from?
My name's Jeff Blaney, and I'm originally from Enfield, Connecticut. And I moved around a little bit. Lived in Los Angeles for a little while, and then moved to New York for a little while. Back into New England, and then finally settled here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Why did you feel a need to move to Nashville?
Let's see. I did a recording session in Nashville when I was living in New York in, I think it was 2001, and just fell in love with it. Just the pace of the session and the city itself. Flying in, you know, you see all the water and it's so green everywhere, and it just looked pretty from the airplane. And loved the people, and the session went really well. I was happy with how it sounded, and I kind of got the bug then, and then did another session with the same group of people a couple of years later, and kind of always thought that I would move to Nashville, and it took me a lot longer than I thought. I was right before I moved here, I was living in Connecticut and working quite a bit as a musician. I was playing in an Irish duo with my brother and in a variety band, and also hosting an open mic. So I was getting my bread buttered, as they say, and which was good. I got a lot of experience playing and songwriting and stuff like that, but it kind of sidetracked me a little bit because I just sort of ended up doing the same gigs over and over and over again, and it was kind of hard to walk away from because, like I said, it was going well at that time. It was kind of easier to make money in music than it is now. But finally, just decided to come. My wife and I decided to come, and just made the leap of faith. We came here in 2008, and neither one of us had a job, and no family here, and just kind of rented a truck and came down.
What did you leave behind, or what did you sacrifice to come down here?
Yeah, that's the tough one. The biggest thing that I sacrificed to come down here is being with my family. I really, it's kind of tough being away from my dad and my brother. They're both in the Northeast. So that was the biggest thing. And then musically, I'd say I walked away from some good things too. Like I said, I had a really good band there, and the open mic that I was hosting was really fun, and met a lot of great players, and ended up playing in a few bands as a sideman through that open mic. So I walked away from some gigs and family, and you know, that's stuff that you kind of can't really replace, but you know, I keep in touch with my family, get back there. Luckily, because of the Irish duo that I play in with my brother, around St. Paddy's Day every year, that's kind of a big deal in Connecticut. And so in Connecticut, the way that it works is the Irish parades fall usually the week before the actual holiday, because New York and Boston do it on the day of the holiday. So, which is great for Irish musicians in Connecticut, because it basically creates this week-long or week-and-a-half long party, basically. And we play around the Hartford, Connecticut parade, the New Haven parade. Usually get my band back together for a reunion show or two, and go back and just do a bunch of gigs once a year, and it kind of allows me financially to go back home and see my dad and stuff like that. So that's worked out really good.
What was the first thing you did when you got to Nashville?
Let's see. Well, the first real job I had, the first gig that I had, was playing mandolin for a dinner theater play that was written by Don Schlitz. It's a legendary songwriter here. It's a Tom Sawyer bluegrass musical, and played mandolin for that for a little bit. and that was actually really great. It was a success. It was supposed to be a month-long run of shows, and they were selling tickets, and so it ended up being more like 6 or 7 weeks, I think, that we did the show, and met some people through that show, and it was a great experience, really. I don't really read music per se. Don't sight read. I can slowly nitpick at it, but it was challenging. I got the gig, which I was happy about, but then I was presented with all this music, and I don't really read, so I just kind of had to just learn it by ear, and I did, and it went pretty well. So it was fun. It was funny though, because I got that gig pretty quickly, like within a few weeks, I think, of moving here, and I was like, this is going to be hard, you know. And then after that show ended, I think I didn't have another paid gig for probably 3 or 4 months or something like that.
Did you have a plan when you got here? Did you come in here with a plan?
I did. I did not have a real plan when I came into Nashville. Other than I just knew that what I had been doing was really kind of getting old, and I wanted to experience new things, and really that's kind of all my plan was to just try to learn and experience new things musically, and that definitely has happened. So I guess in that way I did have a plan, and it worked out. But one thing that I think Nashville does for you is, or did for me anyway, is it made me realize how scattered I was with where I was going musically. I was hosting an open mic and playing lead guitar for a couple of bands, but then I had my own band that I was writing songs for, but most of the gigs that we got were the expected cover songs, so we were doing cover music, and then the Irish duo was working as well, which was great. But ultimately I just wanted to write songs and do original music, and you know, play the music that I loved, which was a lot of times not what I was playing on the weekends. So it took me a while. You know, I came here thinking I could do all of those things, do the sideman thing, do the electric guitar thing, and the mandolin thing, and songwriting, and you know, at the end of the day, I just don't have time to do all those things, and you know, all those things kind of suffer if you try to take on, for me anyway, if I try to take on all those things. I realized that I wasn't really giving any one of those things the time and energy that it takes to really make it good. So Nashville definitely kind of got me to the point where I don't know if I know what I'm doing now, but I feel like I'm kind of more grounded and centered, and know where I want to go at this point more than I did 5 years ago.
Have you found what you expected when you got to Nashville? Is this what you expected, the things that you've run into, or is it totally different?
I'd say that a bunch of things are kind of what I expected in Nashville. The songwriting community is huge and awe-inspiring, and the musicianship is amazing too. So that it definitely is true, and I expected all that. There's quite a few things that I didn't expect also, though. Like one of the biggest ones for me is I love country music, you know, and there's a real lack of love for country music that I've found. I mean, there's a lot of people that love country music for sure, and there is the tourist thing on Lower Broadway where people love old country music and they want to hear country music. But, you know, as far as your typical venue, if it's not one of those tourist venues, you know, a lot of people don't really like, or they don't want to hear old country music, it seems like, anymore. That said, it took me a while, and I have found myself I have some good steady work now in venues where I can explore the music that I want to, and what I came here for. So I've been learning a bunch of really old country and jazz standards and old blues music, and old bluegrass music and stuff like that. But it took a little while, because I had some gigs where, you know, I showed up, I'm like, I'm in Nashville, I'm gonna, you know, play the latest Jimmy Rogers tune that I learned or whatever. and you know, people would say, "Oh, that grandpa country music," you know, and they want to hear um, whatever top 40 stuff or whatever, which is what I was trying to leave when you know, the variety band that I'd been playing in was like doing that stuff, and I was just kind of not into that anymore. So it took me a while to find the gigs that allowed me to sort of play the music that I want to. But there's definitely a lot of work here in Nashville that, you know, is not based around country music, and a lot of country music that's being recorded that is not country music, for sure. That said, Nashville also has an amazing rock scene that's going on, and singer-songwriter scene, and the Americana thing is really cool. So I mean, I love a lot of different types of music other than country music too, so it's exciting. I love playing rock music, and there's a lot of great rock bands here. But I don't know. Yeah, the modern country thing is kind of I don't know what it is. It's not country though, I'll tell you that.
How does the music scene in Nashville compare to the music scene in Connecticut, where you came from?
It let's see here, the music scene here in Nashville compared to in the Northeast is it's just bigger is I guess how I would describe it. I was surprised by, like, I wouldn't say that all the songwriters and all the guitar players in Nashville are better than they are in any of the places that I lived in the you know, like I said, I lived in California for a bit, New York, and the Northeast. It's just that it's so much more of it. So yeah, the great songwriters and the best songwriters and the best players are, you know, some of the best in the world. But that said, there's this huge scope. So, are there terrible guitar players in Nashville? Absolutely. Are there terrible songwriters in Nashville? Definitely. But it's just, there's just so much of it. It's awe-inspiring, really. It's really incredible how many people are here doing it and throwing themselves into it, and it's just such a melting pot of ideas and musicality and stuff. It's inspiring.
Well, what are the pros and cons you have found since you've moved to Nashville? There's some good things and bad things major things that you've noticed since you've been in Nashville.
Yeah, let's see. I guess a lot of the pros to being a musician and a songwriter in Nashville are just the resources that are here. I mean, here we are sitting in this amazing studio here, and this is one of many in town. And the musicianship is, you know, if you look for it and are respectful to people, and you know, just kind of find the group of people that you want to work with and that you respect. Yeah, I mean, I did a session last year where the band was just amazing. Every player that was on the session was great, and the studio was amazing, the engineer was amazing, and everyone was really doing it because they were believing in my songs. And I think Nashville is pretty unique in that way. There's not many places in the world where you can get, you know, a drummer that's that good, and a room that sounds that good for those drums. You know, it's the resources here are endless, it seems. So that's been great. I don't know, the cons to Nashville. There's, you know, there's obviously the oversaturation. There's a lot of people here trying to do the same thing. So I don't even know if that's a con though necessarily. It just forces you to up your game, I think, a little bit. I'm still getting used to the tipping thing, working for tips. In one way, I think working for tips is great because it really does, it really does gauge how good you are. Like I've found that when I'm playing well and the band is playing well, or if I'm doing a solo gig or whatever, if I have a great night, I'll walk away with more money. If I kind of mail it in, then I'm not making as much money. So that's kind of cool in some ways. The downside to it is that, you know, the way that things have changed in the past 10 years, people don't carry cash as much as they used to. So I don't know, because I wasn't here in the 90s or the 80s, but I would assume that it would be easier to shake some cash out of people's wallets in the 90s because people had cash in their pocket more. And on Thursday I was at the Family Wash in East Nashville, and a guy had to leave a tip on his card and then have the bartender get the cash out. You know what I mean? It's like he doesn't have any money and he wanted to tip me, and he did. It was really nice of him, but he had to go through that process to actually throw a tip my way. And last night I got tipped in it with a beer, which was nice, you know. Money, cash is king, as they say. A beer is cool and all, but you know, a $5 bill is better. So that's kind of tough. A lot of times people want a tip, but they just, you know. And I've been in that situation too, where I go to Lower Broad or whatever, and I'm watching a band and I love it, and I go to my wallet and I'm like, oh man, I don't have $1 with me or something like that, you know. So that model of working for tips, I think, is kind of not working the way that it probably was 20 years ago. So that's a con for sure, I think.
You're right. People don't have cash anymore.
You know, it's kind of funny. You see them, like I've literally seen that several times where they're walking out and they feel bad, and then they just leave feeling bad. And I feel bad because I want their money.
All right. Besides Nashville being a mecca for music, was there anything else that you found since you got here that was appealing or interesting to you or your wife?
Oh yeah, for sure. Nashville is filled with just really great people, for sure. It's I've just found that the majority of the people that live in Nashville are just good folks. You know, they got the head on their shoulders, and the city itself is great. Our house is butts right up to Shelby Park in East Nashville, so I can get out to the biggest park in Nashville without getting into my car. And you know, it runs right along the Cumberland River. It's beautiful. The trees are beautiful, and for the most part, the roads work. You know, my first meeting when I lived here, when I moved to Nashville, I had allotted like whatever my typical 45 minutes or something to get there, and then got across town in like 15 or 20 minutes, and I was sitting in the parking lot for about a half an hour or whatever. And that's when I realized that it's like, oh yeah, this isn't New York or whatever, where, you know, you need to fight traffic for an hour just to get a few miles away. The roads work, the city's beautiful, and, you know, the food's good. Barbecues is some of the best in the world. So there's a lot of great things about Nashville other than the music. Actually, here's another big one for us. My wife and I had twin boys 2 years ago, identical twins. And the healthcare system in Nashville, we have been completely amazed by. Just the care that we've received and that they've received was amazing. And our boys are healthy, and they got, you know, through the pregnancy, they really got taken care of. And then, you know, in the hospital, through the birthing process and after the birthing process, everything about the healthcare system here we've found to be really top-notch.
What would you tell other people who are thinking about moving to Nashville, other songwriters who want to move here to do what you did? What would you tell them to do?
I guess I would tell other songwriters that are thinking about moving to Nashville to do it, for sure. You're gonna learn, and you're gonna grow as a songwriter if you move here and you do it. You know, I guess one thing that I wish that I had done differently was I wish that I came with more of a game plan, like we were talking about before. I got distracted by other projects and other people's agendas, which is, you know, an easy thing to do here because there's so many people trying to do their thing. And, you know, I ended up finding myself playing lead guitar for a band that I didn't even really like the songs at one point, you know. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I doing this, you know? So I would say for sure the one thing that would have helped me would have been to kind of just know that I wanted to go for the songwriter and artist thing and just kind of leave all the other stuff behind, because it ended up just being sort of a distraction for me, and it took me a couple of years to really kind of figure that out, actually. So to kind of come with a clear idea of what you want to do, I think would probably be a good idea.
Are you happy you moved here?
I am, yeah, for sure. Definitely happy I moved to Nashville. It's been a great experience, and wouldn't trade for the world. I definitely miss my family, for sure. But I just was in Florida a couple weeks ago, and saw my mom and my brother there, and you know, like I said, I get to go up to the Northeast and play some shows at least once a year, usually a couple times a year. So I do get to see them, but you know, I miss my family. But they love it too. They come here and visit, and all of my family members have said that they really enjoy their time here when they come and visit too. So it's been a blessing for us to be here.
Do you have any regrets about moving to Nashville?
No, I don't really think I have any regrets about moving to Nashville. I try not to think that way, just sort of in general with life. I mean, even the things that go wrong, you learn from. So, you know, if I had come with more of a clear plan of what I wanted to do, I maybe could have gotten on the track a little bit quicker. But all that said, all the experiences that I had that went awry and gigs that I've been fired from and all that type of stuff, you know, you learn from all those things, and you get better, and you just kind of get stronger as a musician and stronger as a songwriter through it. So I don't really have any regrets, I don't think.
Let's talk about some of the successes you've had here. I know you're an excellent blues player, and you've done a lot of different gigs. Tell me some of the successful things that have happened since you've been to Nashville.
Well, let's see. I got as far as the songwriting and recording has gone, I've been able to produce some recordings that I'm really proud of. And the first record that I did when I moved here is a record called Moonlight Waltz. And again, the resources here in Nashville are incredible. I was able to hook up with a professor at the Art Institute of Nashville, and they have a program there, an audio program, and was able to record the majority of that record for free because I was their subject matter. And I had done a bunch of sessions before I moved to Nashville, so luckily in that way I came here kind of with some experience in the studio and some failures in the studio, so I kind of knew what not to do. So even though it was a student-run session, their gear was top of the line and the studio was great and everything. So I was able to record it for free, and then I used Kickstarter, the website Kickstarter, and my friends and fans and family really made that record happen. I didn't really have to pay to press it or get it online, and the pre-sale was successful. So I really I felt proud that I pulled a rabbit out of a hat with that one. I didn't really have any money to produce a record, and I stand behind the record. I really love it, and people seem to have liked it, and you know, it all just kind of like came together in a way that would have never ever came together if I wasn't in Nashville. And then since then, through that record, I sort of met a bunch of people, and so now I'm working with Very Entertaining Records, a little indie label that also hosts the one and only Bill Davis and Charles Butler and Associates, friends of mine and people that I really respect as musicians and songwriters. So that's been a success to work with those guys too, and just kind of write songs and get them recorded and get them out there has been really a fun experience for me.
Let's talk a little bit about the songwriting community, all you guys that hang out together. What's your impressions of the songwriting community in Nashville?
The songwriting community in Nashville it's amazing for sure. It's really really cool. Again, I would say that it's just really vast. There's so many songwriters, so that's something that you can, you can take what you will from experiences, but there's everything from people trying to do pop songs to rock bands writing their songs, people writing country music, obviously, bluegrass songwriters, and I've tried to, work with as many people as I can, and it's been great to just sort of see how different people approach songwriting. And through that, I've also learned that, although for the most part, that I really, for the most part, prefer to write alone, which I learned that through writing with other people. Now, I don't want to make it seem like I don't do co-writes. I do. My friend Jeff and I just wrote a tune recently that I'm really proud of, and still doing the co-writing for sure. But it made me realize that sitting down with a guitar is kind of how I did it when I first started. And even if things completely fall apart, if you're in a band that breaks up or whatever, you always got that acoustic guitar in the other room, So that's I've kind of gone full circle in that way, that I had stopped writing by myself because I wanted to throw myself into the Nashville songwriting community, and I'm glad I did that. And I want to do more of it because that's an art form for sure. They're different to me, totally different entities. When I write by myself, it's one thing, and co-writing is another art form, and obviously they have similarities, but they're different experiences for sure. And the co-writing I'm still working on, but it's been really good. My friend Jeff and I have had some songs happen recently, and it's funny how our process has turned into, oddly enough, the tool that we use is our phones. The smartphone, it's amazing those things have so many uses nowadays. But the little voice memo thing, and so one of the two of us will have a little melody or something, and so all right, let's get that recorded, and it'll take like a couple of takes to really make sure that the notes are right, and then we'll just kind of hang out and work on it, throw words together that fit into that melody, and okay, we got a half a verse now, and then we'll record that on the phone real quick, not feeling like we have to set up mics and make it a big deal, just sitting on the couches or whatever, and with the phone, just kind of record it as we go, and then we've had success with it by the end of the session, where we both have a version of the tune on our phone, and then the next day you can kind of listen back to it. Okay, that was good or whatever, and then maybe change it a little bit or whatever. But it's funny, I would have never thought that I would use a phone as a songwriting tool, but it's been a great tool to use.
If you had to do this over, if you had the chance to redo it, to move to Nashville, would you have done anything differently than you did this time?
I don't think I would have done anything differently, just because, like I said, I think you learn from failures, and I did for sure. I mean, there are things that I wish that I had done differently, but I don't really know that I would change them, just because they put me where I am here now. So I'm just happy to be playing the music that I am. I'm fortunate to play. I have a residency at a place called Miller's Cafe in Christiana, Tennessee, and it's really fun. It's down home, great food, and I have the freedom there to play what I want. So it's cool. I get a chance to do. Recently, I've been learning a lot of country and jazz standards and stuff from the 30s, and which that's kind of how I've always worked too. For me, everybody's different, and there's definitely a lot of songwriters that I know that don't do the working musician thing at all. But for me, I I created a fake ID when I was 19, and it was back in the day when it was like a little laminate ID, and I kind of separated it and switched some numbers around. So I was a working musician when I was 19 in bars, and that's just always been a part of the music thing for me. Is I just love just blowing out all that energy at the end of the week and doing some gigs, walking out with money, and so that aspect of the music for me always kind of informs my songwriting, and so it's been great. The songs I've been learning recently, some old Hank Snow songs and songs that Louis Armstrong sang and stuff like that. Those songs from the 30s, the melodies are huge and beautiful, and the chord changes are just so interesting compared to a lot of the stuff that's made now. So the challenge that I've been having is to try to use that style that I've been learning, but not remake it or not do it in a way that's something that you've heard before, and kind of make it contemporary and modern sounding, but still using the model that was used back then, which I think was so much more based around the melody. That's one of my critiques of a lot of the stuff that I hear nowadays. I'm like, well, it sounds good, the production value is great, and there's an interesting lyric in there, but there's so many songs on the radio now that just have, it's like one note. There's the melody is kind of lacking, and then you go back and listen to like an old Hank Snow song or something like that. I learned Now and Then There's a Fool Such as I, and the melody that he created in that song is just, it's beautiful. It's something that you just don't really hear anymore nowadays. So it's been great to sort of use the gigs as a way to find a different path for me as a songwriter.
Well, tell me, what's the best thing or the coolest thing about being a songwriter in Nashville?
I think that for me, the coolest thing about being a songwriter in Nashville is the chance to really bring those songs to life with whether you want to do a co-write with someone that you respect and love their songwriting, or use a rhythm section that is really talented. I mean, there are so many great drummers, bass players, and utility guys here in town, and girls. I say guys, and I mean both. That you can really, have an idea for a song and make it exactly what you want, or have it turn out being something that you didn't necessarily expect it to, but a musician puts in something in there, a flavor or something that you didn't expect, and they're bringing their 20 years of experience into the session or whatever too. So I think the greatest thing about it is that you can really explore and create and produce stuff that if you're just kind of playing in a band in a town that has maybe one recording studio in some guy's basement or something like that, you're just not going to get the same experience as you do here in Nashville, for sure. There's so many talented people working in this town. You can make your songs pop.
Well, is there anything that we didn't cover about being a songwriter or being in Nashville or moving here that you would like to say to people who are thinking about doing this?
Well, I'd say one thing that I did moving here that worked for me, that I think I would advise people to do, is just to come to Nashville first. If they're thinking about moving here, it's also a great town to just come and hang out and party, and luckily, like I said, I was able to do some recording sessions here before I came, but in the midst of those sessions, I was also able to walk down to Lower Broadway and check out the scene there and hear some really great guitar playing. So I would say that would be a really smart thing to do, is just kind of come for a weekend, check it out. And if you're really serious about moving, then another thing that we did was just kind of start looking for places. I did the 2 sessions, and then my wife and I came probably about 6 months before we moved, and with specifically in mind to try to find a place to live. and we found a place that we thought we were going to move into. And then as it turned out, the way that it worked was that by the time we were ready to move here, that place had already been moved into, but the real estate person that was going to put us into that place had a couple other places to show us. So, we came down with a place to stay at least, rather than just, kind of showing up and here I am, but don't really have much going on. That said, that's all we had was a place to hang our hat. Neither of us had jobs or friends or family or anything like that. So it was kind of a bold move, but I would say that would be a good thing to do. Just come to Nashville, hear the music, and check out some studios if you can. There's tours of RCA Studio B has a tour, which I did a session in that room, and oh man, was that cool, seeing that, like, they have mics that Elvis sang into, and it's just incredible. The musical history here is awesome. So visiting Nashville is a good idea, I think.
Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Very good. Very good. We'll do the
All right, thanks for listening to me, guys, and check out my website is www.jeffblaneymusic.com. Thanks a lot.